Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into one of the most painful and emotionally charged tragedies unfolding in our world, the suffering of innocent children caught in the relentless violence in Gaza. This discussion is not about politics, not about sides, and not about assigning blame to one community or another. It is about human lives, especially the youngest among us, who are enduring devastation that no child should ever experience. As we look deeper into the harsh realities faced by these children, the intention is to highlight their stories, their struggles, and their voices that often go unheard behind the noise of conflict and geopolitical arguments. In conflict zones, children are always the ones who bear the highest cost. The situation in Gaza illustrates this heartbreaking truth with unimaginable intensity. Many of these children have never known what a peaceful childhood feels like. For them, the sound of explosions replaces lullabies, the sight of smoke replaces sunsets, and fear replaces the innocence they deserve. Their daily lives are shaped by uncertainty, displacement, trauma, and loss that most of us can barely imagine. As we examine this situation, it's important to remember that every statistic represents a real child with dreams, hopes, and a future that is being taken away too soon. One of the most heartbreaking aspects is the sheer fragility of life in an environment as densely populated and heavily targeted as Gaza. Families live in close quarters, and when violence erupts, children have no safe space to run. Their schools, homes, playgrounds, and hospitals, places that should symbolize safety, become vulnerable zones. This constant exposure to danger impacts far more than physical safety. It shapes their emotional well-being, their mental health, and their ability to build memories filled with joy rather than trauma. For children who survive the violence, the emotional toll continues long after the physical destruction fades. Many lose siblings, parents, relatives, or friends. The grief they carry is far heavier than what most adults in more peaceful parts of the world ever experience. This grief leaves deep marks that influence their behavior, their academic performance, their sense of trust, and their overall psychological development. In many cases, the trauma remains untreated due to the overwhelming strain on Gaza's already fragile healthcare infrastructure. Humanitarian organizations face enormous challenges in reaching these children with the support they desperately need. Blockades, restricted movement, and destroyed infrastructure all contribute to delays in delivering aid. Children often suffer from malnutrition, dehydration, and preventable illnesses simply because medical supplies cannot reach them on time. When conflict intensifies, hospitals struggle to handle the overwhelming number of injured civilians. Doctors work tirelessly in overcrowded emergency rooms with limited resources while trying to save as many young lives as possible. Education, which is a fundamental right and a beacon of hope for children everywhere, is severely disrupted in Gaza. Schools are damaged, repurposed as shelters, or temporarily closed during periods of intense fighting. The lack of consistent access to education steals more than just academic learning. It takes away stability, routine, and the social environment that children need for normal development. Teachers often become more than educators, so they turn into emotional anchors for traumatized young minds who desperately need reassurance. When we observe the situation from afar, it's easy to become desensitized to the numbers, but each child has a unique story. Some were playing outside moments before an explosion. Some were helping their parents. Some were sleeping in their beds, unaware that their lives were about to change forever. These stories are reminders that behind every recorded tragedy are real lives that mattered and futures that held promise. The children in Gaza are not statistics, they are sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, students, dreamers, and human beings who deserve safety and dignity. A major concern is the long-term impact that war trauma has on the next generation. Children growing up surrounded by destruction may develop feelings of hopelessness, anxiety, and deep emotional scars that could influence their entire future. Many experts warn that repeated exposure to trauma can have lifelong consequences, shaping everything from emotional regulation to their ability to form healthy relationships. Without proper psychological support, entire generations may suffer the lasting effects of a conflict they never chose to be part of. The desperation felt by families is unimaginable. Parents try to shield their children as best as they can, but they cannot control airborne explosions, collapsing buildings, or shortages of food and clean water. Many parents, facing impossible decisions, must choose between staying in dangerous areas or fleeing into even more uncertain conditions. The helplessness of not being able to protect one's own child is a burden that too many mothers and fathers in Gaza carry every single day. Despite the suffering, there are countless acts of resilience and courage within Gaza's communities. Volunteers risk their lives to rescue children from rubble, teachers gather small groups of students in tents to continue lessons, and medical workers push past exhaustion to treat young patients. These moments of hope illustrate the strength of the human spirit and the determination of people who refuse to give up even in the darkest times. Children also show remarkable resilience, finding comfort in small joys as sharing food with friends, drawing their dreams on pieces of scrap paper, or laughing for a moment despite the chaos surrounding them. International debates and political discussions continue, but children remain at the center of the suffering. Many global organizations call for immediate protection of civilians and insist that children must never be targeted or placed at risk. They urge all parties in any conflict to uphold humanitarian law and prioritize the safety of the innocent. But while statements continue, the reality on the ground often remains unchanged for those who need help the most. The world has seen heartbreaking images of children covered in dust after surviving bombings, infants wrapped in blankets in overcrowded hospitals, and teenagers sitting helplessly beside the bodies of their loved ones. These images are not isolated moments, they represent a larger story of suffering that has gone on far too long. And while images can spark global outrage for a moment, the real challenge is sustaining awareness and pushing for meaningful change that ensures children can finally live in safety. Aid workers repeatedly emphasize that children need more than emergency relief. They need stability, mental health support, educational opportunities, and environments where they can grow without fear. They need the global community not just to sympathize but to act in ways that promote long-term peace and protection. They need leaders to prioritize their future instead of perpetuating cycles of violence. Many people around the world feel helpless when watching the events unfold, unsure of how they can make a difference. But awareness is a crucial first step. By learning about the real experiences of children in Gaza, sharing accurate information, supporting humanitarian organizations, and advocating for peace, anyone can contribute to a collective effort. Every voice that speaks up for the protection of innocent lives matters. As we continue exploring the impact of the conflict, it becomes clear that these innocent souls deserve far more than what the world has given them. They deserve protection from violence. They deserve access to education and healthcare. They deserve clean water, safe homes, and a chance to laugh, play, and dream. They deserve a childhood filled with hope instead of fear. And most importantly, they deserve peace, a peace that lasts long enough for them to grow, flourish, and create the futures they imagine. The stories of Gaza's children should not fade into the background or be overshadowed by political noise. They should push the world to reassess priorities and recognize that no political goal is worth the life of a child. The loss of even one innocent soul is an irreversible tragedy, but the scale of loss in this conflict demands urgent attention and compassion from the global community. Every child lost is a reminder of humanity's failure to protect its most vulnerable members. Every child who survives carries a story of courage that deserves to be heard. And every child who dreams despite the devastation represents the hope that peace is still possible. We must amplify their voices, honor their experiences, and work toward a world where their suffering is not ignored. As we reflect on the gravity of the situation, we must ask ourselves what kind of world we want future generations to inherit. A world where children live in constant fear, or a world where their rights are defended regardless of where they are born? The answer should be clear. Protecting children is not a political stanza, it is a moral responsibility shared by all humanity. The situation in Gaza is a painful reminder that conflicts do not end when the fighting stops. Their consequences ripple across generations. If we do not act, these children will carry the scars of this violence throughout their lives. But if the world chooses compassion, humanity, and justice, these children can still have a chance at a brighter future. That future requires global commitment to peace, humanitarian assistance, and accountability to ensure that children everywhere are protected. When we think about the many crises around the world, it's easy to feel overwhelmed. But the story of Gaza's children is not just a tragedy, it is also a call to action. It reminds us that even in moments of despair, resilience exists, that in the face of darkness, hope can still survive, and that every effort, no matter how small, can contribute to making the world safer for those who depend on us the most. The voices of Gaza's children, though often unheard, speak powerfully through their drawings, their stories, and their eyes. Some draw pictures of the homes they lost, some write poems about the loved ones they miss, some share dreams of becoming doctors, teachers, and leaders one day. These expressions reveal their desire not just to survive but to live fully, freely, and peacefully. As we come to the end of this discussion, the message is clear: the world must do more, not later, not someday, but now. Children in Gaza need protection, justice, and hope. They need the world to remember them not as victims, but as human beings deserving of every opportunity that childhood should offer. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, and thank you for caring about the lives of innocent children whose stories deserve to be heard. Let's continue to raise our voices for peace, compassion, and humanity. And until the day comes when every child in Gaza and every conflict zone can live without fear, we must not stop speaking out.